Back in the old days, there was this program called Layaway, where you can go into like a store and start making payments on something, some high-dollar ticket item, and once you paid that off every month, it was yours. You could take it home. That's how I bought my first deer rifle from the Marine Corps PX on Camp Lejeune in North Carolina. And it was the first, weapon that I bought that I purchased myself. It wasn't a hand-me-down. It wasn't my dad's. It wasn't anything like that. So I went and I picked out this 30-06, and I just didn't have a lot of money. And so I did the layaway program, but I needed a scope on it. And the cheaper scopes were all sold out. And so I bumped up to like this entry-level loophole scope and put that on the layaway program and had them all, put the whole package together for me and all that. Made the payments and finally got to bring it home. Ever since then, almost every rifle I've owned has had a loophole scope. In fact, I'm having a custom rifle built this year, and it's going to have the loophole Mark 5 HD scope on it. I just killed a buffalo with that scope. It's a really great product. And loophole guys, you know them. Everybody knows loophole. They've been around since like 1907. They started as like a special instrument company or something like that. But these American-made products are fantastic. Whether you're looking for a spotter, binos, a rifle scope, accessories, tripods, bipods, all that kind of stuff. You can find it all at loophole.com. And I'd really appreciate if you supported this American company that has a great American story. And I couldn't be a bigger fan of a company, and I'm so happy and thrilled that they've chosen to partner with the Western Huntsman. Thanks to Leupold, and thanks to you guys for supporting our great sponsors. There exists a threat, from anti-hunting groups to politicians trying to give our land away, and we won't stand for it. Those vast western landscapes provide the space for our wildlife to thrive, and a place for hunters and anglers to fuel the fire that sparks their soul. In this show, we share our love of hunting, fishing, and conservation. Here, we provide the foundation to meet these threats through passion and the grit of the American outdoorsman. Welcome to the Western Huntsman Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of the Western Huntsman Podcast, brought to you by Eastman's Hunting Journals and coming at you from the Broken Time Studio right here in Northwest Montana. While we are still digging out from the last snowstorm, I like for my day job, I've been talking to people down in like Arizona and Texas complaining about 60-degree temperatures and how they have to wear a light jacket. Shut up. It's the end of February. I get a little burnt out with winter, as you can tell. But anyway, guys, thanks for joining me. I am really excited about this episode this week because I've got somebody on. I was kind of linked up with, if you guys have been listening, Rob Yoder that was on the show a few weeks ago. Hooked me up with Jason here, and I don't know if I want to say his last name until I hear him pronounce it. So, Jason, welcome to the show. How in the hell do you pronounce your last name?
So, hey, thanks for having me. I'll set up with Rob another day. My name is Jason Montagna, and I'm over here in North Idaho. Good to have you here. Yeah.
I had it right then. That Joe Montagna. That's what I was going to.
That yep. Mine's an A. His is has no G in it. So
yeah. So it's that nya at the end.
It is. It's the Italian word that spells mountain. So yeah. I'm in the appropriate sport.
Yeah, you bet you are. And guys, I am telling you, like, so Jason and I have been. I called you Joe, didn't I? I had Joe Montana in my head. Okay. Jason Montagna. Did I say it right that time?
That's correct.
Okay, cool. Sorry about that. Jason and I just met. This is kind of the first time we're talking outside of just, setting up this podcast via text message and stuff. But what I know is Jason has a storied history as a hunter. He's hunted out here in Northwest Montana and all sorts of other stuff. He's a precision shooter, long range shooter. Custom rifle builder, all sorts of fun stuff. So, and we kind of probably could share notes about some of our hunting adventures right there in North Idaho, and some of those units up in the Panhandle there that we both kind of cut our teeth on, and if you will. But Jason, let's kick it off with you. Give us like a bird's eye view of you, your background, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, thanks. So I was born into a military family. I'm proud to say my family is full of patriots. We have an unbroken line of military service that goes back prior to World War One.
Wow,
My grandfather, my father, my uncles, my mother. My great uncle was a Catholic priest in the 82nd Airborne, jumping out of airplanes, saving lives. So,
that's
and then I was in
amazing.
the military as well. Yeah, so we have a pretty storied military history. It's been a minute since I was in, but since the military, I've been working in a couple of specific areas. Most of them are really focused on helping people. So I worked in corporate America for about 20 years, working in very scientific, very sales and marketing oriented jobs,
Mm-hmm.
working both here in the United States and abroad, covering about 28 countries outside the United States. Since then, since COVID hit, I started a couple of my own businesses. One of them is Article 4 Rifle Works. I'm a very small boutique rifle manufacturer. I build about 20, 25 rifles a year, and I build a very, very specific product, really focused on really stable, really reliable, long range precision hunting rifles.
Mm-hmm.
Don't build a lot of 5-pound rifles. I don't build a lot of 25-pound chassis rifles. I build what's really interesting to me and what I've learned throughout my career is a proven resource. When you're in the backcountry hunting, when you fall off a horse, when you drop your rifle on a trail, you want to be able to pick it up and know it's going to work. And that's the kind of product that we focus on. I've got a little bit of a history, within the community, both being formerly a sponsored hunter and shooter, as well as working, with some of the, I think, biggest brands, you might say,
Mm-hmm.
within the hunting industry. I've sort of put a lot of that on the back burner. I miss a lot of those guys a lot, but LIFE is where it's at, and life goes in a direction, and you go with it, and you get on, and you ride, and that's what I'm doing right now.
Gosh, good for you, man. I love that story. Actually, what'd you do in the army?
Yeah, so I had two jobs in the army. So, funny story. My mother, who was a major in the Air Force at the time, um, she worked in healthcare, and she was head of recruiting for a part of the Air Force. So I went to college for a year in San Antonio, Texas, intending to be a physician.
Mm-hmm.
And after about a year of sitting in a class with about 300 people, I just thought to myself, this is not going to happen for me. So the military was always going to happen. So I just went ahead and made the leap. She wanted me to be a PJ.
Oh,
She
really?
could, yeah, well, she could have made it happen. She was a recruiter. But, at 18, 19 years old, I knew the way, right? And I had my heart set on going in the army, and I had chosen to go on a path to become a ranger. So during my first year of service, I went down that path. At that time, it was a pretty specific path. Basic training, AIT, airborne school, what then was called RIP, the Ranger Indoctrination Program, which is now RASP. They've changed the name; it's still the same program.
Sure.
Where after you go through all of that training, they take you over to a spot at the time at Fort Benning, and they just smoke you for 30 days to see if you want to make it or not. Made it through all of that, went to Ranger Battalion, spent my first year in the Ranger Battalion, and then transferred out of that unit, went down to Fort Stewart and became a member of the Rapid Deployment Force. Was deployed a few times, went on a few, about 3 or 4 deployments during my
Uh-huh.
time in the military. And then after combat, decided to get out. Had initially intended to go back to college and go back in and be an officer. But God and life's path chose a different avenue for me, and so I pursued that.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't it interesting what we have in our mind, when you're young and the path you think you're going to take and God derails it for us, for most of us.
Well,
And
I'd
for
like
a
to
good
think he
reason
knows
in most
better.
cases. Yeah, he
I
knows
would like to
better.
think he knows
Yeah.
better.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. No, I love it. Um, and also I want to make mention and I want to talk about it a little bit down the road here, but for those of you kind of in the northwest Montana, North Idaho, even eastern Washington's not that far. The outfitter that I guide for, Elk Creek Outfitting. If you go to elkcreekoutfitting.com and scroll down kind of to the bottom of that main page, it talks about the shooting school and prepare for your fall hunt by attending the precision shooting school. Jason here is our instructor for that. And so we'll circle back to that and talk about it here towards the end. But just so you guys are aware, if you want to do that, there's a few different dates set up for this summer. Well, late spring, summer, all that kind of stuff. And I'm not sure if all the days or dates are actually posted yet. I think what I'm looking at is last year's dates. But they're gonna update that on the website. But anyway, Jason is the instructor for that. That is a course that's going to be designed for hunters, long range shooting systems, right ammos, right rifles, optics, rangefinders, all that kind of stuff. So again, I want to come back to that, but um, I'm curious about your rifle builds, man. How'd you get into that?
Yeah. So, you know, when you're first getting in the industry, you come in, at least I did, with a whole bunch of passion and no money.
Yeah.
And, I'm a sponge. I'm a real tech guy. I'm a technology guy. I think I've been accused of being obsessive and compulsive more than once in my life. And once I decide to kind of learn something, it's either all or none. So I really started to link up with people who were better than me. And whether it's building rifles, whether it's learning how to hunt, whether it's guiding, whether it's learning how to turn a screw, I think the most valuable advice I ever got was find people that are better than you and learn everything that you can from them.
Yeah.
So
That's
that's what
great.
I did. Yeah, that's what I did. So I started connecting with some of the industry leaders. I started connecting with, disruptive technology organizations that were really pushing the envelope, tip of the spear, if you will, on, where we wanted some of this technology to go. Gun companies, barrel companies, bullet companies. So I learned from some of the best people in the industry. And I took that learning and, grew that learning both personally. I grew that learning making mistakes. I've learned more sometimes making mistakes than I have, everything going right.
Yeah.
Um, did as much research as I could. I'm a voracious reader. I'm a voracious hand-on guy. And I found myself to have an aptitude and a real mechanical passion and a mechanical ability to really put that process together.
Yeah.
There's an art and there's a science to building rifles. There are a lot of guys that can just go grab some parts and, put a gun together, but there's a lot more to it when you're really building a high-end precision rifle. And I really took the time for years to really understand what that was before I even hung my shingle.
Hmm.
So now that I have done that and I've had a company for about 3.5, 4 years, I put out about 20, 25 rifles a year. And thankfully, I've never had one come back and I've never had a complaint. And that's really the
Wow.
kind of business that I want to run. My goal
Yeah.
has never been to build 300 guns a year. It never has been and probably won't ever be. I really like to be hands on. I really like to be a part of the process. And I really like to get to know the people that I'm building a gun for. I really like to know what their passions are. I really like to know what their abilities are.
Hmm.
So we can marry that ability to whatever they're ordering.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's pretty cool because it's such a different thing than just walking into a sporting goods store and buying a rifle. And there's something about that I'm really drawn to from that standpoint because I've had some just over the counter rifles fail me over the years, and not from a standpoint of functionality so much as like they come out of the box great, they shoot great, and then just things deteriorate, and it's hard to explain. Like the trigger gets harder to pull, or yeah, just things like that. I've got this one rifle that is really frustrating. It's just a right over the counter rifle is what I call it. But I was sold on the functionality of this rifle, and I'm not going to name names and all that, but the bolt is really difficult. It is a very, and I'll clean it. I'll put oil all over this thing, and I feel like it's smoothing or getting smoother as I do that. But then it like it's like a struggle, and I don't want to struggle with that in the field. If I need to do a follow-up shot, I don't want to have to struggle with that bolt getting jammed up. You know what I mean? And so anyway,
Yeah,
uh
I think there's some credit there though. I think, with the way the industry has gone over the last 10 or 15 years, there are a heck of a lot of pretty good over-the-counter guns you can go buy today. I mean, if you're a guy
oh
that,
yeah.
is budget minded, if you're a guy that maybe hunts, 2 weeks out of the year, if you're a guy that's wanting to get into the game and you really have to think about, expenses, there are a heck of a lot of over-the-counter guns from a lot of manufacturers that are going to serve you incredibly well.
True.
And
Yeah.
they're going to do it for 80 to 90% of people out there.
Mhm.
They truly are. They're going to shoot around a minute. They're gonna function, they're gonna operate, and for most hunters, they're gonna serve you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
But, when and I sort of think about that as a really nice Camaro, a really nice Mustang, right? You can go down to
Mhm.
Ford, you can go down to Chevy, and you can get one of those, and it's gonna be a sporty car, and it's gonna do a lot of the things that you wanna do. And even though hey, everything breaks, you know, um, they're not that apt to break. They're built pretty good. They're built to be run all day, every day, and have a good time in 'em. And then there's that niche of people that wanna go get a Ferrari.
Mhm.
There is a lot more that goes into building a car with a V8, and a Ferrari than there is a V8 and a Ford, right?
Sure.
Tolerance differences, fit and finish differences, functionality differences, but you can't run your Ferrari on pump gas. You can't run your Ferrari on 87 octane, right? Your Ferrari is gonna have some little nicks and ticks to it that you're gonna have to learn. And your Ferrari is really built to do 1 or 2 things incredibly well, go really
Mhm.
fast and turn corners,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not really designed to do every little thing incredibly well. So that's the analogy I use a lot of times with, hey, what's an over-the-counter rifle gonna do for you versus a precision gun?
Yeah.
The other thing I'll make a really good distinction on is, if you're a hand loader, you're probably not buying an over-the-counter gun. It happens. But if you're buying a custom gun and you're not a hand loader, you're not driving that Ferrari as well as you can. There's a limit there.
Would you equate that to putting, octane 87 in a Ferrari, or is that like talk to me a little bit about that? Because
Yeah,
I
it would.
that's something I wouldn't have. Again, I told you before we hit record here. I spent so much time focused on being a bow hunter for so long. I feel like the rifle side of hunting and the even the sport of what rifle being a rifleman is and whatnot surpassed my abilities, surpassed my technical knowledge, all that kind of stuff. And so, I'm curious about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So for me, in my experience, and I think what you'll hear from a lot of really great shooters and really great builders is there's a secret sauce in that precision rifle. And, a precision rifle is only good as the sum of its parts. And a precision rifle is only good as in some of the parts that work together. The secret sauce is in that chamber. The secret sauce is in that relationship between that action, that barrel, and in that chamber, and how you're engineering that chamber to shoot both for that caliber and for that bullet.
Hmm.
So, what I'm talking about when you think about that Ferrari and what you're putting in the gas tank of that Ferrari, we're thinking about that same thing with that bullet, powder, and case combination that you're shoving down into that chamber and squeezing the trigger on.
Mm-hmm.
I could build a guy the best component-based rifle that I've ever built. I really could. And if you go buy box ammo, it is not gonna perform as good as you want it to. It's just not.
Interesting.
The
Is
limitation is the limitation is what you're feeding it. If
Yeah.
you're gonna buy a precision gun, you better hand load.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So that's something to consider for me, even because I've always done this thing. Like a great example. Actually, you remind me of a guy that I know that is like this real precision fly tire, right? And he makes the best dang flies you've ever seen in your life. I have a bunch of them, and I almost don't want to fish with them because I don't want to take a risk of losing these flies, right? Because they're so nice. But for me, he's always like, you need to tie your own flies, Jim. You need to tie your own flies. Man, I don't have that kind of personality. I don't want to sit there and tie a fly. I'd rather go buy some flies and go spend my time on the river.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I've always been with ammo. I want to find good ammo that I like, that's consistent. Uh, I've never really loaded before, and I don't know that I could get into it, if that makes sense,
Yeah,
because
look,
it's personality driven.
it is. It's both personality and it's also necessity driven.
Hmm.
One of the things that we talk about in the school a lot, and one of the things that I talk to shooters about all the time is confidence. Confidence in your ability and confidence in your equipment.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
what reinforces that is knowing that when you lay down behind that rifle and you connect with that trigger and you put those crosshairs on a critter, you are 100% sure that everything is done to ensure that that's the best shot that you can make, both in your personal training and your equipment, and also in what you're feeding that Ferrari.
Hmm.
Look, just like there's some great over the counter rifles, there's some pretty darn good over the counter ammunition, especially at the precision level when you think about 6.5 Creedmoor, 308 or 300 Win Mag or,
Yeah,
300
yeah.
PRC or, any of those calibers that the military might use or precision might use or, are really proven case designs. There's some pretty darn good ammo out there, but
Sure.
there's a limitation, right? Most people don't realize is ammo manufacturer might have 5 machines running during the day, and all 5 of those machines may be pumping out the same ammunition,
Mm.
300 Win Mag, 6.5 Creedmoor, whatever it is. They go into a big giant hopper, and then they go into a box. So you may have 5 different, machine-built rounds in the same box. So
Yeah,
there
yeah,
might be
yeah.
some variances in what you're putting down. That what hand loading does is it gives you the ability to ensure that once you go through your hand loading process, once you've found your load, it is perfect and it's repeatable and it's reliable every single time.
I also think about, a lot of what we talk about on this show. My wife and I, we kind of we're kind of homesteaders, self-reliant, and try to live off the land as much as possible, and utilize what God provided that way. Uh, and so when you start building on top of that, this idea of like self-reliance, for example, being proficient in things like reloading, I imagine is a pretty solid skill to have. Were things to go sideways, on like a societal level or something like that. I think about that kind of stuff. I kind of geek out with that. You know what I mean, Jason?
Hey,
It's
my,
like,
my neighbors know if the zombie apocalypse happens, come on, hold up here. We're good. We
yeah,
got it.
that's kind
Everybody's
of
going to get a rifle or an AR and everybody's going to be
yeah,
just, you
yeah. That's
know,
kind of how it is here. All my neighbors are like that here.
COVID really brought that to the top. I mean, you remember
It really did.
when guys were selling 8 pounds of Rotumbo for $1,000 on Gunbroker,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
who knew stuff was hitting the fan?
yeah,
Luckily, now we're in an administration that's not going to be a problem.
yeah.
And we're seeing over the past probably year or 18 months, we're seeing stuff on shelves again.
Yep,
Right.
yep.
But that shouldn't stop anybody from look. And here's another thing. And this relates really well to that. What I personally do is when I buy a precision rifle, when I make a precision rifle, when I sell a precision rifle, I provide some advice on that. I say, the barrel life on this gun should be about 1,500 rounds, 1,800 rounds, whatever that is. I will generally coach people to say, okay, you wanted to shoot a 180 grain burger out of this 7 millimeter. Go buy yourself 2,180 grain burgers out of the same lot. Go buy yourself 2,000 rounds worth of powder, 2,000 rounds worth of primers, and you will have it until that barrel burns. You want to
Mm-hmm.
reuse the same stuff in that barrel until that barrel burns.
Gotcha.
So, that's one of the things that, a lot of precision shooters do. That's one of the things that a lot of really, sort of high-end hand loaders at home and recreational shooters do. And that's something I really recommend if you're going to bite that piece of the cake, if you're going to
Yeah,
go all in and you're going to buy that custom rifle and you're going to hand load and you're going to do it, do it all the way.
I like it. I'm leaning towards all of this, and because, like I told you, I've been so archery focused for so long, and I'm come to, and this has been the last 4 or 5 years. In fact, What was that? Was that the COVID year? I think it was that first year of COVID. I went on a rifle hunt, and it just kind of, I I'm not like a purist in one thing. I talked about fly fishing. I love fly fishing, but I like to also use night crawlers, and I get a lot of enjoyment out of all these different things. And when I what I was finding is just being an archery hunter, there is nothing wrong with that. I know guys that are great hunters, they're great bow hunters. That's all they want to do. That's totally fine. But for me, I like the different experiences. I like being an archery hunter. I also want to have the ability to be a long range shooter and go out on these rifle hunts because it's a different experience. And
Yeah.
it's not to ever be in this position where I want to argue with somebody about, well, archery hunters are real hunters, rifle hunters aren't, and blah blah blah, because it's just not true. Rifle hunting is very difficult, and archery hunting is very difficult, but they offer the same things. And a great, example of that, this because you live in North Idaho and you probably hunt elk in these jungles of North Idaho. For me, it's way easier to kill an elk in September with a bow because I can call these elk in out of the jungle, expose them, get a shot on them. Rifle hunting, forget it, man. I just it's hard. It's very
I,
difficult.
I love my bow.
Yeah.
Been fortunate to shoot a lot of critters with it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I'm like you. I buy my flies, right? It's where you want to
Mm-hmm.
put your passion. And look, I mean, I love the guys in Onyx. I use it. I'm glad we're getting guys from all over the country that get to come out here and experience September elk hunting.
Mm-hmm.
But, the woods are getting full and it's getting
Yep.
harder to find critters. And the management of those tags, in my opinion, isn't being adjudicated correctly. I
Yeah.
think, it's going to get harder and harder to find a good critter and to shoot a good. And I don't care who you are. I don't care if it's with a bow or a rifle. I don't care if it's with harsh language.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
Killing an animal is not as easy as it used to be. So, look, I don't care if a guy is a hardcore bow hunter. I don't care if you're a hardcore muzzleloader. I don't care if you're a hardcore rifle hunter. Each mode of hunting brings its own challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And, just because you grab a bow and you decide, to go kill an elk in September because they're going to come to you like a 800-pound turkey,
Yeah.
doesn't mean you're going to have success.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you're
No.
going to get it.
Exactly. And I like.
Hunting with a long range rifle doesn't mean you're going to get them either.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've seen a lot of misses on both rifles and bows over the years, and I've been responsible for some of those misses myself. So, but I do like that concept that you were talking about with putting the right fuel in that rifle, so to speak. To use like an analogy of that, but because I grew up hunting in the 80s and 90s, man, where like we just went down to Walmart and bought a box of ammo. I grew up hunting with a 30-06, an old school 30-06, and that's still kind of my mentality. I'll go and I'm like, now I'm at a point in my life where I'm not looking for the cheapest box. I'm looking for the right grain and the ammo that I've used in the past that has been successful for me and consistent and that kind of thing. And it doesn't matter what it is. I've been shooting a lot of these Barnes bullets, these copper bullets lately. They're pretty fun. They're pretty cool. That's a different experience as well. But I that's where I think I'm going is I'm trying to kind of scale past this mentality of just going in, oh, here's some good factory ammo. I remember I killed a deer with this kind of bullet, in 1998 or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm exaggerating the time, but it makes a lot of sense that ammo, and I think that's what I never put together prior to me getting back into rifle season, or I'm sorry, rifle hunting, was this concept that your rifle's only as good as that ammo you're putting in it, and it was like more of an afterthought to me. I'm just gonna, what ammo do I have rolling around in the back of my truck to grab and throw in this rifle, and that's a pretty hillbilly way to do it.
I started like you. First
Yeah,
hunting rifle I ever had was a 30-30 with a 150 grain soft point coming out of it and a 4
yeah,
power scope because that's all I had. And it killed deer dead. And
oh,
that Sears
absolutely,
and Roebuck 30-06 that I got next, and that Sears and Roebucks was just a rebranded Winchester Model 70 that you could buy a little cheaper because it said Sears and Roebuck on it.
Yep.
And it kills deer dead. 308, 300 Win Mag, you name it. Over-the-counter guns with over-the-counter ammo has killed deer dead for as long as they've been around.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I guess, when it comes to the long range game, just because you can doesn't mean you should. So, there are a lot of guys who are capable of hitting targets at ungodly distances, 11, 12, 13, 1,500 yards, etc.
Sure.
Just because you can doesn't, in my mind, doesn't mean you don't hunt anymore. Just because you
Yeah.
can hit something at 1,000 yards, does it really mean you should? One of the things I talk about all the time is, people don't realize when you're on the range, you're in a really relaxed, known environment, right? You can kind of take your time, you do what you want to do, your heart rate's low, you're relaxed, there's no other sort of stuff going on around you. When you get in the field, that's not taking place. And up here in North Idaho, you're probably breathing hard. Your blood pressure's probably, off the charts. Your pulse is off
Mm-hmm.
the charts. The wind's blowing, right? The animal might be moving. The thing to realize is, when you squeeze a trigger at 1,000 yards, it takes that bullet about 2 seconds to get there, depending on caliber.
Sure.
There's a lot that can happen with an animal in 2 seconds.
Yeah. I mean,
That animal might have its head down and it might be completely still. It might have been still for 30 seconds. And right when you squeeze that trigger, it decides to pick its head up and take 2 steps.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's so true because, and I always equate that to just imagine how much can change at 20 yards after you release that arrow. And that's quicker than 1,000-yard 2-second shot. And so I'm always careful with that because over the years, I've gotten to this point where I don't want to wound animals anymore. And I don't care if I'm using a bow or a rifle or a muzzle loader or whatever. I want to be as lethal as I possibly can and not push those limits for the sake of the animal.
Well, and let's talk about math. If your hit probability at 1,000 yards is 40%,
Mm-hmm.
and your hit probability at 500 yards is 80%, why wouldn't you get to 500 yards?
Yeah.
If you can get to 500 and the animal is still there, and your hit probability at 400 yards is 90%, why wouldn't you get to 400?
Sure.
Just because you can doesn't mean you always should.
What do you see as a shooting instructor? What do you see a lot of people doing that's really kind of, I don't know if it's leading them astray or maybe there's like some old wives' tales out there kind of thing, but how are people messing it up in the field?
Oh gosh.
That's a loaded question, right?
Yeah, that's a long answer. I think what I see a lot of is sort of an improper connection with the rifle, how they mount the rifle, how they drive that rifle. And driving that rifle is what we talk about in how the body interacts with the rifle and the pressure that the body puts on the rifle. Either your cheek weld or you've got a death grip, because in the Boy Scouts you were taught to grab that rifle and pull it hard into your shoulder and, get it
Yeah.
in there tight to manage recoil and do all of those other things. It all matters. Doesn't matter at 300 yards, not so much. But in my mind, in my view, and in my experience, really the long range world starts at about 500 yards.
This whole dive into copper bullets has been fascinating for me, and you guys should check it out. Go to barnesbullets.com and have a look at the website and check out these bullets. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I found with them. But what they talk about is, since 1989, they've been engineering the most technologically advanced hunting bullets and ammunition on the planet. And the more I shoot these suckers, the more I tend to believe it. They're manufactured here in the USA. In fact, their facility is down by my dad's ranch in central Utah. And what I've found is they really do create a little bit better penetration. They expand on impact, so the blood trails are quite a bit larger, and they do a little bit more damage, putting that animal down a little, faster. It's a way. In fact, on their website it says produce massive wound channels even in dense, thick-skinned game. And that is true. I found that to be true for sure. Check them out, and check out the episode I did with Barnes. So it's 191 with Mitch Cookson, and he gets into great detail about how these bullets are designed and why they're better. Definitely worth some consideration. Go to barnesbullets.com, have a look for yourself, and make a decision. Let me know what you think. See ya. Back a couple months ago, I did an episode with Brandon Maddox, who is the founder and owner of Silencer Central. You should listen to that episode. It's episode 197. I love this company, I love this brand, and I love the American-made product that Silencer Central produces. I use the Banish 30 on my hunting rifle, and if you guys follow me on Instagram and you saw that video I put together, you'll see that it's not like what Hollywood portrays it as. It's not like it silences the rifle down into nothing. But it makes a huge difference. Like, my ears don't ring when I shoot. The animals don't know where the shot is coming from. It disorients the sound. And Silencer Central makes it super easy for you guys. Jump on to silencercentral.com and pick one out. You could ship your rifle to them. They'll thread your barrel. They'll ship it back. This is like a 10-day process. And the ATF process is shortened significantly. It's like down to 48 hours or less. It's the best time ever to get a silencer on your weapon, and you should check it out because it really is a game changer. SilencerCentral.com is where you could find them, or you can call 866-891-4494, and they're happy to answer questions. It's crazy. They actually have people that answer their phone. Again, guys, go to SilencerCentral.com. It's one of my favorite sponsors out there. These guys are just absolutely world-class with these world-class products, and I can't recommend putting a silencer on your hunting rifle enough. Save your ears, disorient the sound in case you need another shot. I mean, it's a game changer, folks. Check it out.
Most modern calibers have pretty similar dope, data on previous engagements, drop charts, ballistics profiles. Most modern guns have very similar out to about 500 yards. And then that's when you really start to see the variances increase. And shooting at 800 yards isn't twice as hard as shooting at 400 yards. It's 10 times as hard. So, what I see generally with people is they've got a death grip on the rifle. They're improperly connected with the rifle. They're not allowing the rifle to do its job. A rifle is supposed to recoil, and managing that recoil straight back and managing how you drive that rifle is incredibly important.
Yeah.
When the recoil starts, that bullet's still in the barrel. So any application of pressure, any twisting, any turning, any improper driving of that rifle could have an effect on where that bullet is coming out of the barrel, and then you may miss the target. Hopefully you miss completely, or you make a bad shot.
Yeah.
So for me, that's the really one of the keys to the shooting school is really learning proper technique. When you see a guy playing golf, you might see some of the ugliest golf swings in the world. Just learning the proper technique would clean a lot of that up. Same thing with shooting.
Mm-hmm.
And that applies to your own gun. That applies to everything you're doing. Archery hunters, if we love archery, right? Proper technique will shrink your group size, will increase your maximum effective range, and will really help to ensure that you kill more critters with proper technique. Same thing with a rifle.
I've always kind of said, proper technique, proper, training on both these applications. And I'm not leaving muzzleloader guys out for. I've killed a few things with a muzzleloader before, so everybody relax. But specifically rifle and archery, kind of what I've always said is that technique trumps expensive gear. It trumps like with a bow. You can go out and buy the best bow on the market, but if you don't know the proper technique as to how to shoot it, you're going to be worse than somebody that does have proper technique and picks up a bow at a pawn shop tomorrow.
It would suck if you buy a new Ferrari and you're not prepared to drive that Ferrari. It would really suck to wrap it around a pole on the first day.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I think about with a precision rifle. You can go buy a whatever precision rifle. It's all built for you. It's got the best optics in the world on it, and it's supposed to shoot 1,000 yards. Well, the rifle might be capable. Are you?
Yeah.
Is the hunter capable? The data would tell you only about 5% of all hunters are really, really capable of accurately shooting farther than 500 yards and guaranteeing, 80, 90, 100% hits on animals.
Yeah.
5, maybe 10%. That number's probably getting a little bit better. But based on what I see, based on what I hear from outfitters, based on what I hear in the industry, is, once you get in the field, that number drops a lot.
Absolutely.
The field will make you honest real quick.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of, sorry, I'm dealing with a cough here. Yeah, it's you nailed it when you said there is something way different about shooting in the field, especially if there is an animal that you're shooting at, again, bow or rifle. That the elements, the angles, the winds, the noise, the external things, the pressure of knowing that there's I'll use a bull elk as an example, because what like fires you up more than a bull elk, right? You see this giant animal, and that external pressure of am I going to make the right shot? Am I and I still do get I don't care if I'm shooting at a spike whitetail in my backyard. I get really excited, and I get that buck fever shake going, and for some reason I don't get it as much with a bow, but I still get it, and knowing how to overcome that kind of stuff. Do you teach that aspect of it in this precision course, or
Well, that's not
like
not necessarily
I guess like
something.
the mental side is what I'm talking about. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I mean, it all matters, right? What we do in the school is we teach people how to be as comfortable as they possibly can at their maximum effective range. So go back to the beginning where you started, and sort of, hey, just because you can shoot it at the range doesn't mean you can shoot it in the field. What we recommend is that if you're hitting the 600-yard gong 8 out of 10 times at the range, your maximum effective range in the field is probably 10 to 20% less than that. So if you're
Okay.
hitting this 100-yard gong, your maximum range in the field might be 500, 520. Because the field will make you honest quick. The field will
Yeah.
magnify your mistakes a lot more than the range will. I hear guys and see guys all the time when they come in and they sight in their guns and they show up in the school or they show up at hunting camp, and that Friday night they get out of the car and they run over the range and they get their gun, zeroed, and they go out and, try to bang some steel, and they might hit that 400-yard steel target, and they walk away and they go, okay, I hit the 400. I'm good to 5.
Yeah.
Well, no, you're
Yeah.
not.
I've kind of been guilty of that in the past. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty rare that a guy who knows what he's doing is going to hit a 400-yard gong and then say, I'm good to 500 in the field.
Hmm.
To me, that guy's not educated.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. It's like that for a lot of things, but specifically, and I'm curious, what's your take on, because the thing is most hunters are not guys that are fully dedicated year round to shooting, to all that kind of stuff. Most hunters they're going to go to the range once or twice before hunting season, and shoot whatever distance the range is, whatnot. I know this guy, he used to joke around. I used to work with this guy. He used to joke around with me like a week before September, and he'd be laughing about how I haven't even pulled my bow out of the closet, but I will tonight, and shoot at 20 yards at the little box target in the backyard, whatever. And it kind of, I'm careful with this, but it kind of irritates me, Jason, because we owe it to the animals that we pursue more effort than that. We owe more to them. It's not for our sake. We owe that to the animal. And to be as lethal as we can. So I got derailed. The point was, a lot of hunters, they're going to the range once or twice prior to hunting season. Then they go out, they get in the field, and I think that like you said, there's more hunters now. The animals are harder to find, especially the big ones. So maybe they practiced out to 300 yards or 400 yards, but they see this animal at 550, and in their mind, this is going to be their only opportunity. They can't get closer because it means they'd have to drop down into the bottom of a drainage, and then they're going to be out of view of the elk, or whatever the case is terrain wise. And so they, under that kind of pressure, and under that feeling that um they're not going to be successful because they can't get any closer at the time, and this is the only one they're going to see, and they're running out of time, and also the pressure of, I really want to be able to post this animal on my Instagram, and all these things that come into play today. they end up taking that yard or that shot at 550 yards and hitting that thing right in the butt or the front leg or something. I remember this was years ago. I hit a deer right in the front knee and it blew the knee off with that old 30-06 I was telling you about. And that feeling, I still am upset about the way that made me feel watching that deer, and it trucked out of there, out of my life forever. Never found it. The way it could move with only 3 legs blew my mind, but I'm sure he didn't make it, and so I hate that feeling. And but I know how I came about to that was this feeling that I'm never going to see another opportunity this hunting season, and that's what a lot of hunters get themselves into. How do you talk through that, and how do we make that part better so that hunters are more lethal and more capable when they go out and that perceived one opportunity is in front of them, but maybe it's out of their range?
Yeah, great thought, great question. I'm going to say a couple words here, and they're pretty controversial words, and then I'll talk about what I recommend, what I teach, and what I've seen. So ethics. Everybody's ethics are their own, right? Whatever your
Mhm.
ethics are, those are your ethics. Mine are mine. Then the hunter A has their ethics. So I'm not telling you, how you should change your ethics. I'm telling you what I see in the field, what I've experienced, what I do, and what the guys that I'm around on a regular basis and what we teach in the school. So first and foremost, we owe a debt to the animal. We owe a debt and respect to that animal.
Mm-hmm.
And, going through whatever process that we have to go through to ensure that we are respecting that animal, whether we make a perfect shot or not, is critically important to me. And I think there is some loss of that I've been seeing over the years. There's some loss of, oh, it's just a deer. Oh, it's just an elk. There's one tomorrow. We'll get another one, whatever it may be.
Can I ask you something about that?
Sure.
Where do you think that comes from, Jason? Because I totally agree with what you just said. That the overarching idea of ethics as a hunter were rammed down my throat by people like my grandpa and dad and everything. And now I feel like that's missing. Where do you think we've lost that sense of ethics? Where does other things get prioritized over ethical hunting?
Yeah, look, I wish I knew because I'd go back and punch that guy in the face
Yeah,
wherever
yeah.
that came from, right? Look, and I'm not talking about making a mistake, it's just like archery hunting. If you archery hunt long enough, you're gonna lose an animal.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about a guy who makes a bad shot and either doesn't do the right thing or doesn't know how to do the right thing because they weren't taught how to do the right thing. And I think a lot of that is, a lot of hunters are coming to the sport a lot later in life.
True.
You talk about the fabric of, the family in the United States. You can talk about the political environment. You can talk about, the knowledge that was passed down from your grandfather and your father and mine, and what doing it right looks like. When guys ask me that question, I say a couple things. Be honest with yourself. Be 100% honest, brutally honest with
Hmm.
yourself.
Yeah.
Why are you here? If it's to shoot an animal to fill a freezer, great, go do that. If it's to shoot the biggest thing in the woods, great, go do that. Do it well and be prepared to do that at the best of your ability. Look, if you want to, with a bow, if you want to show up in camp and shoot, you know, 20 arrows as your practice before hunting season, great. Go kill your animal at 20 yards or 30 yards. If you want to shoot, I shoot thousands of rounds a year,
Hmm.
thousands. But I take a break in the winter. It's cold up here. I don't want to go shoot.
Yeah, I'm like that too.
Um, you know, but look, I'm lucky. I can build guns, as many guns as I want. I built myself a 25 Creedmoor. with a big heavy barrel on it, on a chassis. And at the beginning of the season, when the snow breaks, I go out and I put about 200 rounds through that, and I get myself wet. I get myself reacclimated. It's a perishable skill. Just like
Yeah,
shooting an arrow is a perishable skill, shooting a rifle is a perishable skill. So, for a hunter to come out and to shoot at an animal and shoot it in the leg or whatever else, if it was an innocent, sort of hunting mistake, fine, do the right thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Not move on to the next animal. It's exhaust all options for finding that animal. One of the things that we teach in the shooting school, and this goes back to what we were talking about in the mistakes that hunters make, is being able to set up to that rifle, connect with that rifle, and drive that rifle correctly so that even if you're hunting by yourself, you have the ability for a follow-up shot if you do make a mistake on the first shot as quick as possible.
Absolutely.
So with Idaho, it's not always easy to make that follow-up shot because, it's a jungle out there. But if you have the opportunity to do that, having the ability to do that is just as important. So we teach that. So whatever someone thinks about, whether or not they should shoot that animal or whether or not they wounded that animal, that's what we're out there to do. We're hunting. And it
Hmm.
is an organic environment where things happen. But don't come to me and tell me you shot one and you didn't do the right thing. You're
Yeah,
not going to hunt me again. You're off my range. You're gone.
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't want you around me.
yeah, yeah. It's excuse me. What do you have a take or an opinion as to what like and again you kind of said every hunter has their own set of ethics. I might not agree with those ethics, but it is up to each hunter to develop that set of skills, that set of ethics, and etiquette. Hunting etiquette is another big topic I like to cover, but in this case, ethics and knowing your limitations. Everybody is like they seem to hold themselves accountable to what they think they can do and not accountable to what their real limitations are. And I want to like kind of pick your brain as to where that maybe if there's like in your mind a cutoff of distance for different animals. I only shoot out to here for elk. I only shoot out to there for deer. And again, I know this is super personal for everybody listening, but you're the expert at this. So what do you recommend?
Yeah, I think it's changed over the years.
Yeah,
I don't know if I'm the expert. I just know what I do really, really well. So I hesitate to use that word with myself or anybody else. There are some experts out there. I'm probably not the guy. But I am well learned. I research a lot. I practice a lot, and I'm really good at what I do.
Jason, it's usually the guy that doesn't claim to be the guy that is the guy that is the guy. Just so you know.
Okay. Well, the back to the question.
Okay.
You know, one of the easiest ways I think we can think about that is thinking about the size of the vitals on the animal you're going to shoot. So a lot what we were talking about earlier, if you can hit a 600-yard gong 8 out of 10 times on the range, your maximum effective range should probably be about 500 yards. Well, I also think that, okay, if that maximum effective range is 500 yards, is that relative to the size of the vitals on that animal? So what do I mean? Well, the size of the vitals on a pronghorn antelope is about a quarter the size that it would be on an elk or a moose. That needs to be part of the equation because the idea is to hit the vitals.
Hmm.
That needs to be part of the equation. And if you are not confident that your group size at whatever yards you're going to shoot and whatever environment you're going to shoot is going to be well inside that vital area. So if we're talking about an 8-inch vital area, you got to be pretty darn confident you're going to hit within a 3 to 4 inch square at 400 or 500 yards
Yeah. Yeah.
because stuff in the field happens. So I like to think about it that way. I think a caliber should also marry the job.
What do you mean by that? Kind of expand on the caliber, because that's as well as I do. Nothing will fire hunters up more than a good old fashioned argument over what the best caliber for an elk is.
Yeah, there is no
And
such thing.
I hate
Okay.
seeing it on social media. I hate that question on
Oh,
social media.
well,
Drives me
look,
crazy.
there's no such thing as a best caliber, right?
Yeah.
My thing is the caliber that is most accurate for you, that you have the most confidence in shooting, and is going to put that animal down with one shot.
Hmm.
Now that's the Bible for me. That's the holy grail of hunting. I had an outfitter in Africa. I shot a water buck, which
Uh-huh.
is a notoriously tough animal.
Yeah.
Notoriously tough.
Oh yeah.
Big bone. They're built like a bulldog with horns. And I made a really good shot at about 300 yards on that water buck. And that animal ran for about 400 yards before it expired. I got both
Jeez.
I got both lungs, and it ran
Wow.
400 yards. And when we found that animal, we had to track it. We were following blood and tracks, and the trackers in Africa are some of the best I've ever seen. The guys from Mozambique just were born with it. I don't know
Hmm.
where to get. When we found that animal, and when we got there, I was doing the self-apologetic, "Oh, I don't know what failed. I don't know what happened. I don't know how that animal could have run 400 yards, bullet." Right? I'm doing all of these things because that had never happened. No animal had ever run that far for me before.
Yeah.
And the outfitter and the professional hunter turned to me and he said, "Where in the animal's death did that bullet fail?" And I
Hmm.
stopped for a second and I was like, "Okay." But here's my thing. And this is something that I promote as my thing. As the animal gets bigger, so should your caliber. As the
Okay.
animal gets bigger, so should the size of your bullet. As the animal gets bigger, so should all of the things that go into killing that animal. It's not that Chuck Hawks and all these guys have killed elk with 243s. It's not that it's not possible. My thing has always been when you make a perfect shot, you're probably going to get a perfect result. It's when you don't.
Yeah.
It's when that animal takes a step. It's when it hits a bone at an odd angle and something happens. My thing has always been all things remaining the same. I want a bigger bullet going as fast as it possibly can, as accurately as it possibly can to kill that animal. Still don't care. I can run that bullet out there as slow as I want to in the biggest loop I ever wanted to. And it's
Yeah.
real easy to shoot and there's no recoil and I can shoot 500 rounds and not have a problem. But when I'm in the field and I built some Wildcats to do this, I experimented this with myself. I
Mhm.
built a 7mm 338 Norma Magna improved because I wanted to push a 195 grain burger as fast as I possibly could. I wanted to see this in action. And what I've seen in the field and in my own experience, that's my that is my holy grail. As the animal gets bigger, my caliber gets bigger, the bullet gets bigger, and I want it moving fast.
Yeah. You make such good points, man. I really like this discussion because what you were just saying. Oh, I've killed elk with 243s and blah blah blah. Yeah, I get it. But I like the mentality of I and I think about this whether I'm archery hunting or rifle hunting, but I want to be equipped to be able to make multiple different scenarios. When you're using like a 243 on an elk, you're limited in the scenarios that are going to be effective with that rifle. Okay, yes. Okay. He's sub 100 yards, standing broadside straight across from you. Great. 243 is great for that. You get out and you put real elk in real circumstances that we all see every year. This sucker's across the drainage. He's feeding out. His head's down. He's moving slow. He's 387 yards, and there's a slight breeze going to the left. Whatever. That's the scenario where I don't want to have or feel like I have this limitation with the my firearm choice, my bullet choice. I'm getting fired up here, hitting my own microphone, all that kind of stuff. And I love the way that you put that, because you always have that crowd. Oh, you can kill an elk with a 22 if you place it right. Yeah, and I could place a 22 bullet exactly where I want it in my own little home range here I've got in the backyard. It's just there's so many factors and and the intricacies of shooting long range are so extreme. I just don't think most hunters are dedicated to that side of the sport enough to be out there consistently killing elk at like 1,000 yards. That's
There-
my opinion.
There's a lot of movements out there, right?
Yeah,
Look, I'm a small caliber fan. I love them. I personally would never shoot an elk with a small caliber.
yeah,
Go back to what we first started. Perfect shots yield perfect results. But, and one of the things you talked about or asked me earlier was about, how people sort of learn about, shooting and hunting and all these other things. And there's forums and blogs and, everyone has an opinion.
Hmm.
And sometimes that opinion is well founded and sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
Um, you know, if all things are the same, I'm not advocating you go shoot a 600 grain 50 cal, at a pronghorn antelope. I mean, there's nothing that would prevent you to do that, but why would you?
I mean, it
Um,
would be kind of cool. I would totally do it, but you're not
well,
going to get any meat out of it.
no, I mean, it's going to go cook.
Yeah.
Um, but my thing has always been, if all accuracy is the same, why wouldn't you gun up?
Yeah. True.
And I really haven't had anybody give me a really valid argument because everybody on a forum and everybody on a blog makes a perfect shot.
Oh, I know what I wanted to ask. Sorry, I cut you off. You triggered a
Yeah,
thought.
yeah, but all of those guys make perfect shots. They all have guns that shoot a half minute or better.
Hmm.
Every gun is the best gun they've ever had. Every shot is the best shot they've ever made. How many times on a forum or a blog have you seen a bunch of guys say, I made a shit shot with a small caliber or a big caliber or whatever it is? I made a shit shot. I shouldn't have never shot. I never found the animal. I notched my tag anyway because I drew blood
Yeah.
and that critter's probably dead. You don't see a lot of that.
No, no.
So for these guys who don't know the game and don't know what they're doing, um, you know, if you can get better results with something that's got more horsepower and it costs you the same, why wouldn't you go buy a Ferrari? Why wouldn't you shoot it with a big, heavy, badass thing? Why would you
Yeah.
shoot it with a little thing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, yeah. Yeah. Again, you're the expert. I couldn't agree more with how you put that, though, and it's good to have these kind of conversations that do because what you just said earlier. How often do you see somebody on a forum mentioning that? Oh, I made a shit shot, or on like their Facebook post or something. Oh, liver hit this thing, and I wish I would have thought this through before I lit the bullet. Nobody ever does that. That's the problem in the hunting space. Is it's so ego driven, and it's I am the best. I am the master of the universe when it comes to shooting a rifle or a bow, and I can find an elk and kill an elk in any condition because I am the bomb diggity bomb. I learned that term years ago from my daughter.
Yeah.
It's just that kind of stuff, and that's the stuff that just like eats at me. And one of the things I've had trouble with this podcast, with wanting to do a podcast, right, and talk about this stuff, is I'm so turned off by egomaniacs. And the problem is a lot of the big names out there. That's what they are. They're egomaniacs, and it drives me crazy. And there's a lot of them that are not. And it's I call them, and I got this term from something I do in my day job. But I call them the silent experts, and it's guys like you that are not out there tooting your own horn about it, but your knowledge is way more surpassed than these guys that run around and claim to be these experts and influencers and all this other crap that just is there's so much BS and and I don't know, hype behind either, well, hype. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, look, I
Okay.
think it's no different than any other part of society,
Yeah.
right? Football players, hockey players, anybody, an entrepreneur who's worth $400 million, right? When you got
Yeah.
people running around telling you how great you are, at some point you start to believe that.
Yeah.
I am not the best hunter that you're ever going to meet. I'm not even the best shot you're ever going to meet. But something that happened to me really early in my life, I was living in Scottsdale, Arizona. I was attempting to become a professional golfer. I was working at some golf courses. I was learning the craft. I really, like I said when we opened this, if I'm passionate about something, I'm both feet in, and I'm going
Hmm.
to learn everything I can learn. And I was at the back of the range at the TPC of Scottsdale, and I was fortunate and lucky to show up on the range when Phil Mickelson, Tom Lehman, and Billy Andrade were practicing at the back of the range. I was proud enough to recognize that this was a pretty seminal moment. How many guys get to watch this?
Yeah.
So in the space of a half an hour, I watched Phil Mickelson hit about 408 irons. He
Okay.
never changed his club. 8 iron after 8 iron after 8 iron. And every single one landed within a yard of each other. And every single one had nearly the exact same flight. And every once in a while, he would look around and take a break and converse with a couple of people. And Phil's a really open guy. I don't know him. He's not a friend. I don't know Phil to call him on the phone, but he was
Sure.
coming off the back of the range and he noticed I had been sitting there for a while. So he stopped. He said, "Hey man, what are you doing?" I said, "I was just watching and enjoying the show." He said, "Well, what'd you learn?" And I said, "Well, I learned that when you do it that well, it looks like it takes no effort." And I said, "That's really what, I would aspire to do." And he said, "Well, I'm gonna leave you with one thought." And this is the thought that has remained with me for 25 years.
Hmm.
He said, "Do you know the difference between an amateur golfer and a professional golfer?" And I said, "Well, money." And he laughed. And then and
That's
then he
true
said,
though.
"An amateur golfer will practice something until they get it right. A professional golfer will practice it until they can't possibly get it wrong."
I
And
like
that
that.
and that's what I really think, a lot of guys, will do at the beginning of the season or whatever else it may be, is they'll go out and practice and they'll come to the range or they'll go to wherever they're going at the beginning of the hunt and they'll shoot 5, 8, 10 rounds and they get it right.
Hmm.
That ninth and 10th round hits that 400-yard gong or whatever else it is, and they're ready.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why don't you just do that until you can't possibly get it wrong?
Yeah. Yeah.
That to
Absolutely.
me, and we talk about ego, we talk about, personalities wherever they are. And at some point, you've got to live up to your word. You got to live up to the hype, right? It's got to be a bigger critter. It's got to be a more epic hunt. It's got to be, everything's just got to be better and better and better and better. 99% of us are never going to be that. Why are you trying to be that? Go be you. Go hunt the way you want to hunt. Go shoot the rifle you want to shoot. Go shoot the bow, the muzzle loader. Go use harsh language and kill that critter. I don't care. But go be you and satisfy yourself. Don't satisfy your Instagram followers. Satisfy yourself because at the end of the day, you have to live with whatever you did.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
however you think about living with that is going to wear on your soul.
And that is the stuff that will eat away at you eventually. If you've got any kind of conscience at all, if you're out there wounding animals every year, yeah, that stuff's rough. I've done it enough to know that I never want to do it again. And you know, I wish more people would take that to heart. Oh, before we wrap that part up, I wanted to ask you one more technical question, shooting wise, and that is, do you have an opinion as to whether or not a suppressor affects the trajectory of the bullet, or is that like not a thing? What do you think?
So generally, I would say yes.
It does affect
It
it.
does. Yes, it does.
Okay.
POI shift, point of impact shift. It's pretty normal
Uh huh.
to have a POI shift when you put a suppressor on your rifle. A few reasons why. Weight, right?
Yep.
So you're bending that barrel, unless you're using a number 8 barrel, right? A big, heavy number 8, 8-pound barrel hanging off the front of your rifle. That's, you could use to stop a truck with if you didn't have it on your rifle. Or
Mm-hmm.
you're using a really thick sort of Sendero, carbon fiber barrel that's really more immune to, bending. You're putting a piece of, 16-ounce, 12-ounce weight on the end of your gun. It's going to
Yeah.
affect. Second, you're burning powder just a little bit longer, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah,
One of the thing that creates velocity in a barrel is energy. That energy is that propellant moving that bullet down the barrel. That powder is burning during that entire cycle. So if you're shooting a magnum gun with 80 grains of powder out of a 20-inch barrel, it's not going to go as fast as if you're shooting that same rifle with a 26-inch barrel. So when you hang a suppressor off the end of your barrel, you're burning that powder just a little bit longer. So
so the
generally,
barrel's shooting, the bullet's going faster with the suppressor.
yes.
Gotcha.
So is that POI shift going to be so pronounced that it's going to matter at 200 or 300 yards? Probably not. Is it going to matter at 5, 6, 7, 800 yards? Absolutely.
Well, let me ask you this: when you go elk hunting, do you are you suppressed? Do you have a silencer?
I
What's
am.
that? You are. Okay. Good. Yeah, well, that answers that. That helps, a layman like me. So I want to kind of wrap this
I
up.
practice with it too.
Go ahead.
I practice with that suppressor.
Oh,
If I'm going to
absolutely.
go hunt with it, I practice with it.
Yeah.
I don't practice, with it in the safe and then screw it on the end of my barrel and go hunt with it.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. You guys better not be doing that, listening. Like, practice how you're going to do it. Practice exactly how you're going to do it. If you're going to be an expert bow hunter, you need to get out there and practice with your pack on, with your bino harness on, all that kind of stuff. The different times of day, different weather elements, different all that kind of stuff. Practice like you do it. And I really like the fact that you brought that up because that's this kind of stuff, I don't think of a lot. The people I just like you ever think of that? It's like obvious, but to other people it's not, and I've learned a lot of hard lessons that way where I'm with somebody where it's something is really obvious to them, but I didn't even think about it. That's kind of that same concept.
And we teach that in school.
Hmm.
Um, about 20% of all shots in the field are going to be prone. In real hunting situations, you're not going to shoot from the prone position a lot. You're going to shoot seated, you're going to shoot kneeling, you're going to shoot off a branch, you're going to shoot off whatever it is because
Shooting stick, yeah.
whatever it is, right? So one of the things we do in the school is we teach all of that for about a day and a half. And on the back half of the second day, we take you out into the field and we sit you on top of a canyon and we have 8 targets at various distances and at various angles from 400 to 800 yards, and you get to go prove what you just learned, and you get to go show yourself what your maximum effective range really is.
I love
So,
it. I can't wait for this school. I'm doing it. I'm
dude, it's a
doing that,
blast.
the first one. Do you happen to have the dates in front of you of?
We just solidified the dates yesterday. The website will have them. I think Rob's working on that right now.
Okay.
So if it doesn't update today, it's going to update very, very quickly. Uh,
I'll rattle Rob's cage about that prior
yeah,
to this episode because this episode will come out like next week sometime.
sure.
And so I'll make sure that's up because I know there's one in May, and that's the one I'm gonna go to. And then there's probably what is there a total of
One in
three courses?
June. There's one in July. I think the one in May is toward the end of the month. The one
Hmm.
in June is around the middle of the month, and the one in July is around the middle of the month.
Okay,
Whatever those dates.
so there's three for, and again, everybody listening, there's going to be three of these courses. Um, I'll read a couple of the long range shooting systems, basically your rifle setup. Fundamentals of marksmanship, including external ballistics, use of ballistic computer programs, and how to interpret the data with wind reading and compensation, trajectory validation of your ammo. I'm just kind of highlighting here. Proper gear selection, how to pack and fit your backpack, route finding and hiking techniques, and then the live fire field shooting scenarios. And that's what you were talking about, where we're sitting up on this canyon, shooting cross canyon at these different targets that are set up. And do you guys like score that? So like a ranking at the end of the class? Because I'll come
We
in
have a gentleman's
last.
bet. We have a gentleman's bet that we
Okay,
do.
I like it.
Sometimes it's beers, sometimes it's push-ups. It just depends on the crowd. But we'd like to have a gentleman's bet with that. The other thing, when we think about that, we teach the course with your own rifle.
Hmm.
I don't teach the course to sell rifles. That's not why we teach the course. If you want to buy a rifle from me, that's fine. Buy one, don't take the course. It doesn't matter to me. I'm teaching the course for the benefit of the hunters. So we ask that you bring your own rifle. We ask that you bring your own scope. And the reason we do that is because we want to teach you how to use your equipment, because that's what you're going to be using when you get home. If I put you down behind one of my rifles, you're artificially going to be a lot better than you were with your rifle.
Yeah.
And that's great for confidence. And that's really good to learn with. And there's a lot of shooting schools that do that. Good. Keep doing it. It's great. It's really good for the hunter, especially if they're traveling into town from, wherever they are. They don't have to schlep their gun.
Yeah.
One
And
of the
it
things,
makes sense. It makes sense from the standpoint, like I used to be a drum instructor. Not a lot of people know this about me. But I refuse to teach students on my drum set because my drum set is the Cadillac of drum sets. So you get some 12-year-old beginner drummer is not going to have a $5,000 drum set. And so learning on that makes you a much better drummer anyway. Sorry, did I cut you off there? My screen went out for just a
Oh, that's
minute. Bear.
okay. I guess the take home in that is we really want you to know your equipment. We want you to know your equipment so well that when you go home, you're able to replicate what we taught you.
And what else about that course should people know? Like they stay at the lodge kind of thing. It's 2 days. What else should we throw in there?
Yeah, so it's a 2-day course. You arrive Friday, you go home Sunday night. The accommodations are fantastic. Cabins, showers, not so important in the summer, but they're all heated. The beds are super comfortable. The chef is amazing. You will not go hungry. You will eat incredibly well. And look, we're there to work, but we're there to have a lot of fun. We're there to laugh and just really learn from each other. And look, the best feedback that I can get are photographs from the hunters or feedback from the hunters when they
Oh
text
yeah,
me that animal they shot. When they text me and they say, prior to taking your class, I shot this great whitetail at 430 yards. And prior to taking your class, I would have never even attempted that shot. And here I am going home with this animal. And that's a big portion of the reason that I do it. I just love that, people get value. And really, one of the things we talked about earlier about ethics or proper hunting technique and all these other things is, I don't have any kids. I'm never going to have any kids. And I think about, how do I want to educate people and how do I want to share the information that I have? It's not just for me. I hate when guys don't share, the things that they learn. I
yeah,
hate
I
it.
do too.
You know what? Share it. What's it doing for me? I'm good. I've had a great career. Um,
Will
I,
you?
I build a lot of guns. I shoot a lot of stuff. I travel a lot of places.
Yeah,
I've killed a lot of. Why do I want to keep all this a secret? No way.
yeah, yeah. Great point, man. Will you share your best elk spot with me right now?
Sure.
Since you like to shoot. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah,
Don't do
it's a
that.
quarter mile past the fork in the road around the east side of the north side of the south side of that black mountain with the tree on it. Remember that
Yeah.
big tree that we saw where the rut is in the road? That's where
Nunya Business Mountain. I think
that's
that's the
the
one,
one.
right?
Any damn business corner.
Hey, who should attend that course? Like beginners, experts, in betweeners? Who benefits from this course?
If you're not proficient in what you're doing, you should take the course.
Okay, so that's me.
One of the things, I get that all the time. Beginners, exceptional guys that have shot a lot of stuff. If you're not sure of what you're doing, if you're going to your buddies for advice, if you can't quite use your equipment up to the, you know, design of it, if you're just not sure about things, one of the hardest things to do is unlearn bad habits. If you
Yes.
think you have some
Yes.
bad habits, let's come unlearn those bad habits. Let's break those bad habits down. Let's show you why they're bad, and let's give you some good habits. And let's teach you the
Absolutely.
right way to do it.
Man, I can't express the importance of what you just said enough. The military is a great example. When I joined the service, I went to boot camp. I went to the Marines, and I thought I was going to be this badass on the rifle range because I'd grown up shooting jackrabbits and hunting and 30-06 this and 30-30 that. And I got on that range, man, and the way that an M16A2 service rifle fires is way different than a deer rifle, and that spring loaded action and all that kind of stuff going on. I barely passed the minimum standard to get through boot camp. And it took me a long time to unlearn those habits that I had with the way I was. I don't even want to say I was taught. We just went out and shot. It took me a long time to unlearn those bad habits, and eventually I did. I came out of the Marines, a third award expert rifleman, but it was a long time and a lot of work in my head to relearn that. Um, for those of you listening, this shooting course, you're going to want to jump on elkcreekoutfitting.com and you could check it out. The pricing on it is on the website. I don't want to say what the website says right now because, again, I believe this is
Okay.
all from last year. This is a full weekend kind of experience, guys. This is like a life-changing type kind of course. I'm going to be at the one in May. So if you want to come and hang out with with a monkey like me, come see us. And this is again, it's at the lodge that I guide for. The food is like Jason was saying. I'm telling you, when I was guiding there, we're going 5 to 10 miles a day, and I still felt like I was gaining weight because of the incredible dinners we'd come home to at the
Well,
lodge. It
and
was
let me plug an idea out for some of those folks thinking about it.
yeah.
Uh, it's a family event as well.
Hmm.
So, you know, the lodge is set up to sleep 20, 30 people. So if a guy wants to come and bring the wife and the kids and they want to go horseback riding, if they want to go fishing, if they want to go sightseeing, if they want to go hiking or whatever else that might be,
Yeah.
you can bring the entire family. We can put you up. We can take care of it. You know, if you've got a 16-year-old that, you know, wants to come hunting, put him in a course.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, you know, the classic sort of, okay, I'm a 25-year-old guy and I want to learn the long range game. Bring your family out, make it a family event, stay longer if you'd like.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
you know, have a great time. It could be a great little summer vacation for you. You know, if you want to come out with a bunch of guys, we do corporate events.
Hmm.
So if you own a company and you want to bring guys out and learn, I mean, we've got some guys showing up the day before bear camp, and we're going to have a quick, a 1 day course, a quick crash course. We're going to help guys get their guns sighted in. We're going to give them some dope. We're going to give them some instruction. You know, we're going to do some things to
Fantastic.
help them
Yeah.
make their hunt more successful. So there's a lot of ways to have a really great experience without being sort of, okay, I have to come myself and focus in on being a dedicated shooter. Yeah, you need to come do that because the information is going to come fast and it's going to be deep and we're going to take really good care of you. My co-instructor is a former Olympic athlete.
Shooter.
Um, who probably has some of the best trigger control and some of the best technique that I've ever seen.
Wow.
And you know,
Yeah.
he's a very accomplished, well-known guy and a really great shooter, and he's just a good dude.
Yeah.
Uh, so you know, we like to keep the ratio of students, you know, pretty small, so that way we can really provide some personal instruction both on the range and otherwise. So
Yeah. There's usually not
really a
a
lot of
hundred
fun.
guys there, right?
No, we limit the class to 12,
Okay. And
and
that's
we do that on purpose.
oh, that's powerful. No, that's great. That's exactly what it needs to be, especially again for guys like me. That's what I need. I need to hang out with guys like Jason Montagna and reinvigorate my shooting skills with a rifle because I just I love the concept. I love the idea. I love the fact that you mentioned, if you want to bring your whole family. I think Clay will be there by then. And he'll be doing the horseback rides and all that. So if your family wants to take off and do that, and the other part is where you're doing the shooting with those targets on that last day. Again, like you're in elk country, guys. This is where we guide some of our elk hunters, and this is where several elk are killed, deer are killed in these mountains, and this is going to be in some beautiful country. I'll put it that way. It's literally a mile from my house, and I love where it's at, the location, that little drainage it's nestled in, and the lodge is just a great setup. So don't expect it, guys, to be like a $400 or $500 thing. This is an investment to get you to the next level. And guys like Jason are few and far between where you can actually learn from somebody who's going to really help you put it together. Um, and if you're one of those guys that thinks you know it all, I would challenge you above anybody to come to this course and see what you can learn, because this is how we grow as hunters. This is how we grow as men, as humans, as whatever we want to classify ourselves as. But it's a great course. Again, you're going to find it at elkcreekoutfitting.com. And I'll make sure all that's current by the time this comes out.
Yeah. Look, you know, if you wanted to leave, you know, sort of what am I going to get from the course? I think in this podcast and in life, you're going to learn from me that I'm passionate about what I do. I'm passionate about the people I do it with.
Hmm.
And if you can't feel that passion in this podcast, and you will feel it personally when you interact with me, I'm passionate about you leaving better than you were when you came, more equipped, more intelligent, more confident, with more ability than what you came with. And I'm passionate about having a great time doing it.
Yeah.
I'm also
I
passionate
believe it.
in open lines of communication. Look, if you can't come to the school, fine. Find an expert. Find a guy that knows and go learn.
Hmm.
Not some guy, nameless figure on a forum or a blog, and who knows what they know. Maybe they know, maybe they don't. Go find somebody that knows and invest in that person.
Yeah,
If you're passionate about this, if you're passionate about learning to be the best you can be, go find a way to do it, whether it's with me or not.
exactly. I love it. Well, Jason, man, I'm glad we did this, man. I'm proud to call you a friend, and I'm glad we met, and glad Rob lined this up, because you're definitely somebody I need to bring back on the show. Um, you're a wealth of information, and I really value that. So I appreciate you doing this. I know I kept you longer than I said I would. Apologize about that. It's always when you know it's a good one.
Yeah.
And so, again, those of you listening, jump on elkcreekoutfitting.com if you're interested in the course. It's in Northwest Montana, in Heron, Montana, Heron, Heron, Montana. So you can look at a map and see if it's doable for you. And Jason, anywhere where people could find you, social media or websites or anything like that, you feel like people should know?
Yeah. So I have an Instagram account. I'm a small company. I don't do a lot with it. Article 4 Rifle Works on Instagram is a
I'm going to
great
find
way
that.
to connect with me. I'm on LinkedIn. I don't feel like it's appropriate to give my phone number or anything like that on a podcast.
I
But
wouldn't do it on the podcast, buddy.
if you really want to get a hold of me, you can. You can also email through Elk Creek Outfitting, and they'll get you, directly in touch with me. If you're interested in anything, if you just have questions, please reach out. I'm passionate about this, and it's really what I enjoy doing.
Yeah.
And Jim, I really appreciate being here. I've had a great time. I hope the listeners and viewers found some real value in what we talked about, and I'd be
Yeah.
very flattered and happy to come back and do another show with you.
Yeah. I'd love to. I'll close it out with the fact that I'm glad that the guy that took a shot at Trump didn't take your course. And so, but
we're about a quarter inch away from
yeah,
Civil War or
yeah,
the
yeah,
47th president being in the office, right? So
exactly.
I'll
Yeah.
take the 47th president all day.
I'm glad it didn't. I'm glad it didn't go the other direction. So, guys, Article 4 Fireworks or Rifle Works. That link to the Instagram will be in the show notes, as well as elkcreekoutfitting.com for the course. Real quick, thanks a bunch to Loophole Optics, Vantage Point Archery, Barnes Bullets, Phelps Game Calls, and Silencer Central. Appreciate those sponsors; they make this show possible. And thanks again, Jason Montagna, for joining me. That was an eye-opening, really good conversation, and I think the audience is really going to get a lot out of it. So thanks a bunch for joining me, and I really do hope we can do this again.
Thanks, Jim. Cheers, everybody.
You made it. That's the end of the episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please make sure you're following us on Instagram at The Western Huntsman, and write us a good review at Apple Podcasts. Thanks, guys. See you next time. Stay Western, and I'll see you on the mountain.